2-1. Hello. Hi. Welcome to Before the Box Score Live. We are dealing with, we'll say, some technical issues, but we figured it out. So welcome to Rock and Radio's football podcast. Again, coming to you live. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Parker Gillam. Before the Box Score, National Signing Day edition, live edition. It's time to talk about recruits, Parker. How are you doing today?
Good. Plenty of good news. Plenty of, all the signatures that we expected today, as well as a nice little transfer pulled-up bonus. I feel like Mizzou fans haven't talked about that enough today. That was kind of just thrown in there amidst all the other chaos. But no, a good day overall, I would say.
Yeah, it was a good day. Unless if you haven't been following, that's fine. The good news is that everybody that Missouri expected to sign on the dotted line yesterday signed on the dotted line today. All the fax machines whirled to life. They all submitted. Signatures were on paper. Everybody that they needed is here. There was no surprises. There's no flips to Mizzou, which is okay, whatever. But there are no flips away from Mizzou, which really at the end of the day on National Signing Day, that's what you're thinking about the most. So that was nice. So we're gonna, we'll talk about the recruits that we got. We'll talk about the portal commits that came in. We'll talk about the drama about one specific recruit a little bit. But I think at this point, the best way to do this, we could go through the list and you could say, well, this person's going to play this and he projects like this. Like we've done that before, right? We talk about recruits as the season goes on. You can go on the website. You can read about those breakdowns. It's more fun if you do superlatives. And of course, Parker, being the little ingenious J school student that he is going to have a series of superlatives come out on Rock M Nation. We're not going to do those. I'm not going to make him read his writing to you all, but we'll do something very similar. So I want to start at the top, and I've got a couple of superlatives that I put in here. They're fun. This is all supposed to be fun. And obviously, Parker, this is for Parker. This is for everybody. We could just answer Williams Nwaneri for most of these. We're not going to. It's going to be fine. Obviously, he is a big deal, but we're trying to think outside the box. So if you're going, well, why aren't you saying Nwaneri? We are, but we're trying to give you some more guys to look at because we're all looking at that guy to start off with. So I think, Parker, let's start with what I would say the biggest win. Now, if you want to do the non-Williams Nwaneri portion of that, that's fine. If you want to pick him, that's fine. But in your mind, at the end of National Signing Day, what was the biggest win for Mizzou?
For me, I think you're looking at, outside of Nwaneri, obviously, Courtney Crutchfield, kind of a late commitment and pulling the number one prospect out of the state of Arkansas is just a statement for that, just in its entirety. So I think he was probably a big one that you looked at. Now comes in, he immediately rises up to the second, rated guy in this class overall. So I think he's a guy that obviously entering a pretty loaded wide receiver room isn't going to be able to have, or more than likely won't have a big impact his freshman year. Marquise Johnson, nobody saw coming though, and he did that in his first year as well. So we'll see. But I think a statement, partially the state of the Arkansas football program probably plays a little bit of a part in that, but more so than anything else, I think the commitment of Crutchfield was a big deal. And they outwork other big game programs to secure him as well. So he's a guy, 6'2", 175. He and James Madison, kind of those bigger, rangier receivers. I'm really excited to see kind of down the line once I think they'll contribute somewhat to their first years, but I think when they really fill out and have a couple of years under their belt, I think they will be the faces of that wide receiver room. That Jacob Peeler, that guy's churning guys out nowadays. I think he is going to be one of the up and coming. There's a lot of up and coming kind of assistant coaches on the staff right now, but he is one of those that you're looking at down the line might be getting a bigger job, but also just in terms of his past, he's put dudes in the NFL. From his days at Ole Miss, and he's about to do it with Mizzou as well. So I think he'll be a good one down the line. So I think him Arkansas was a little rivalry win for you.
No, Jacob Peeler has been a boon for the recruiting side. I think a lot of Missouri's presence in Florida is due to him. I know DK Metcalf was a guy that he coached up. Who's the other gigantic?
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. Yeah. Damn. Another nasty wideout. And of course, Jacob Peeler does his due diligence every NFL Sunday. He's tweeting out, nasty wideouts like every time one of his guys does, which that's what you got to do. I think to your point, I think Peeler is definitely going to be a name to look for like coordinator opportunities. He's probably a good enough recruiter that people are going to give him a shot. Now, being a good recruiter does not necessarily mean you're a good coordinator, but people want you on their staff, so that's definitely a place where some money needs to be spent. Yeah, Crutchfield was good. You get to stick it in the eye of your Southern rival and add to your receiving room, which is going to see some massive turnover next year. So it's nice to have an incoming fleet to replace them. So that's a good one. For me, obviously, the non-Williams Winery edition of the answer, the biggest win to me is Kawan Lacy. He is the running back out of Texas who was committed. Like everyone thought he was going to go to Ole Miss. Missouri was basically a back burner school for the entire process until Curtis Looper made a trip and said something, and voila, on commitment, his commitment ceremony, he pulls out the Mizzou commit. Now, I don't know what he's going to do at the next level. In my breakdown of his film, it's like watching Reggie Bush in high school, right? It's just like he's faster than everybody, beats him to the corner, and then goes 40 yards. He can line up as a receiver. He can line up as an H-back. He can line up as a slot receiver. He can be a running back. Like, they just got him the ball. And like Texas football, allegedly pretty good. So it says something that he can do that even at that high school rank. But like, my only question for him is, can you run on the inside? Can you pass block? Can you take 20 hits? Because like he was not getting hit all that much. So I don't know what his usage is going to be, but my God, he's going to be exciting. And we know that Curtis Looper and this offense in particular, they get guys, they beef them up, they make them, 20, 22 carries a game, and they're unstoppable. And they've done that with, an overlooked 3-star in Larry Roundtree, an under-recruited 2-star Tyler Beatty, a unranked transfer walk-on from D2 and Cody Schrader. Like, they've done it with guys who were allegedly less talented. And here comes a guy who is super talented, maybe one of the highest ceilings in the running back room at this moment. Yes, even considering DeForest Jones, Jamal Roberts, this guy, he plays like Reggie Bush. I know that's crazy. Maybe some of you younger folks don't think don't understand that, but Bush was on another level, and that's just what he looked like. That's what Lacy looks like in high school. If he can do that at the college level in this system, boy, it is going to be incredible. Josh Manica's Looper compared Lacy to Christian McCaffrey. So there you go. One of the most talented athletic running backs in the NFL right now. So yeah, there you go. That's, to me, that is the biggest win. I can't wait to see him on the field.
Yeah, I mean, a Swiss Army knife, I think, is more than likely what he's going to end up being. And I think TBD if Kirby Moore is still here, but more than likely, whatever the offense looks like at the point when he's really contributing, he's going to be moved around a lot. I think you're going to see getting the ball in a variety of ways, as Josh pointed out, very Christian McCaffrey-esque. So I think he's not going to be more than likely, at least at first, your every down back by any means. I mean, I'm not even just freshman year talking probably as a sophomore either. I just don't think he'll have the endurance to be able to do that in the SEC.
Sure.
But I think he's going to be getting 10 to 15 touches a game, probably at his peak at least. And that's going to come in a variety of ways. I mean, shoot, maybe if he can step in and have the explosibility that he had in high school similarly, I'd love to see him on some special teams, return teams as well. I mean, I don't know. You might know as well. I don't know if he has experience with that in high school, but that would be something really beneficial, I think, to take this team next level.
So he does. He's got a couple of shots in his highlight film of him returning kicks and punts. Harder to do in college than it is in high school. But I think if you see Kawan Lacy next year, like 2024, it is in a returning capacity, like returning a kick or a punt. I really don't think you see him take a handoff next year. Or if you do, you get the Jamal Roberts Memorial 1 carry for 1 yard loss, That's just not how the staff handles guys. Like whether you're, 4-star or 2-star, you got to wait your turn. So, yeah, I'm less concerned about that. Obviously, you need to re-recruit your roster, and it's tough to do if they promised him playing time and don't give it to him. Obviously, that's not good. But it kind of feels like this staff is really good at not only recruiting guys to bring them onto campus, but also de-recruiting them once they're here and saying, look, you're part of the team. You got to, this is team first. For you to be the best for us, we need you to do this. They seem to be pretty good at managing expectations and decommitting and not having to kiss their butts through the entire 4 years that they're on campus. So I'm less concerned about that. But yeah, I think if you're going to see him, it's going to be in a special teams capacity. All right. So some of these can go into multiple categories. I know that. And for our, we're going to do our best to not double dip here. But Parker, for you, biggest steal, however you want to interpret that, biggest steal of National Signing Day from Mizzou, whether it happened today or a couple weeks ago. What did you think?
Frankly, for me, I could cheat and go with three guys because I think going down to St. Thomas Aquinas and pulling out three names from that school that is predominantly a Florida pipeline that's going to one of the big time Florida schools and one of the big time SEC schools and maybe an occasional Ohio State USC. To pull three guys from that, and I'll choose one of them, and I think the most notable of them all, the president, James Madison, I think he would be the steal for me. I wrote about it a little bit, and he won a different superlative that wasn't this one. But I was talking to a Florida State friend of mine recently, and how that fan base was, I believe, kind of early in the fall, summertime, was so convinced he was a lock for FSU. He was just going to be a Knoll, and then how stunned they were when Mizzou entered the mix, got all that momentum, and then obviously ended up earning the signature. So, I mean, you got him over a couple. I mean, Bama was pretty big on pursuing him as well. Louisville, some other big names, Auburn. So I think that's a big steal to reach down to the state of Florida like that. And just, I think this cycle really proved, if anything, that this program, the brand itself, but also the coaching staff, they're not afraid to go anywhere in the country nowadays to recruit. It doesn't just need to be in-state talent, although they're doing very well with that. But they're not afraid, and the on-field success has helped with that. The culture helps with that. The money that's coming into the program is helping with that. So I think you're going to see this become more of a trend with Missouri now. It doesn't just have to be the state of Missouri. It doesn't just have to be Texas and maybe an occasional Southeast guys. They can go to Florida. They can go Northeast. You haven't seen it as much yet, but they can go West Coast. You saw it. I mean, Barry Johnson obviously transferred, but saw them go out there and get him. They're getting big name guys from all over. So I think that's a sign of a program that's entering that upper echelon of recruiting kind of tier in college football alongside some of the best ones. So I think James Madison probably the guy I would pick for that one, though. And I think he has, as I touched on earlier, I think a very bright future just with his frame, his skill set, once he kind of gets a year or two under his belt.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a huge steal. I can't remember the last time, anytime Missouri got three recruits in the same class from the same school. I don't think that's ever happened before. So that's impressive as heck. And especially for them to be, two blue chippers and a well-regarded 3-star guy, like that's a big dang deal. And so, like, yeah, I am completely with you on that one. Much like you, I feel like I could go in a lot of directions this one, and this is why I wanted to include it in the superlatives and see where we went. I'll give you my answer first off. It's Mr. Elias Williams, who started off his senior year as kind of like a middling good 3-star strong side defensive end. Guys, by the time we got to October, let me read off his offer sheet. Okay, just real quick, so you understand who Missouri beat out to get this little old 3-star who ended up being a 4-star, and Elias Williams. Alabama. I mean, really, we could just stop right there. But Alabama, Florida State, Indiana, Kansas State, Miami, like Miami, Florida, LSU, Oregon State, South Carolina, Tennessee, UCF, West Virginia, and then pretty much every G5 you can think of. Goes with Missouri. And this isn't even a situation where, he's from, Kansas City or he's from O'Fallon. Like, obviously the early NIL is the thing that did it. Like, I'm not saying NIL wasn't part of it, but Missouri got in early. They got in quickly. They were, I think, one of his first offers. He's from Florida, Hudson, Florida. And he signs with Missouri. And then everybody else starts coming and go, oh, this guy's legit. And he's stuck with his commitment. So kudos to him. Like, that's great. Kudos to the staff for keeping him. Kudos to Elias Williams for putting out a graphic. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm not going anywhere else. He had to like make it official. That is a steal. And, it also comes at a position of need. Obviously, Williams Nwaneri is going to be considered for early playing time, as well as one of the transfers that we'll talk about soon. But like, this is a guy, that he's young. You keep him here, build him up. Apparently, everyone thinks he's going to be great, and he's at Mizzou. And Mizzou beat out a bunch of Tiffany brand teams to get him. So to me, that's a big deal. Have you seen any of Elias Williams' film? Do you have any thoughts on this guy? Oh, we just lost Parker, so that's not great. But we'll keep going, because the other thing that I wanted to mention as far as steals go is another one that recently just happened. And I don't know if you all remember um, the cornerback, Sensabaugh, Jaron Sensabaugh. So his dad was an NFL defensive back. Okay, that's a big deal in itself. And he played for the Cowboys. And he is a local guy. He's in Nashville, Tennessee. And so where does he want to go? He wants to go, obviously everyone's thinking, oh, well, he's going to go to Tennessee. And, he's committed to Vanderbilt. He's possibly going to go to Tennessee. He decommits from Vanderbilt once he gets a bunch of people calling for him. So this is like the reverse of the Elias Williams situation. Mizzou was in on him a little bit later than everybody else. He had already been committed to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's in. Everyone's liking that. Missouri shows up. And again, not a local guy. Doesn't have like the advantage of, well, the money's going to come in so we can easily pull him away. None of that. No advantage is there. They just show up. Alpo, the defensive secondary coach, gets in there, talks to the kid, talks to dad, obviously knows football pretty well. And this staff yanks him out of Tennessee, gets him out of Vanderbilt, gets him away from Knoxville, the Volunteers, and brings him to Mizzou. And so, Elias Williams, just because of the number of schools that Mizzou beat out, that's a big deal. But for Jaron Sensabaugh, the fact that they were able to yank him out of the state and bring him to Mizzou, when there's no advantage for him to do that, Alpo said something right, or Eli Drinkwitz said something right, or Blake Baker said something right, pull him away from Vandy, pull him away from Tennessee, bring him to Mizzou. Jaron Sensabaugh is another big deal for me. So that was the other one that I was going to go to. Welcome back, Parker. You didn't really miss anything. I was just vamping.
I appreciate you stalling for time. My laptop decided to crash on me, and then as I opened it, everything decided to update at once. So
heck yeah.
The Zoom update's just coming in right now. I'm going to hope it doesn't I can't X out of it, so we're just going to keep going with it. But
just look, man, this is the beauty of doing things live. This is fun. All right. So we got our steals. And you can interpret that any way that you want, and it's fun to talk about. But let's talk about the guys that we can't wait to see. Because obviously, when you get these recruits, a lot of times you get excited about them, and then you kind of forget about them because it takes 2 or 3 years for them to get on the field. But even with that, let's just have some fun. Let's start with Parker. Let's go with the guy you can't wait to see on offense. So not on we'll get to the defensive side later, but an offensive guy who signed today that you cannot wait to see. What do you think?
I mean, I don't want to double dip and pick Lacy again, because I mean that was mine, I would say. But I mean, if I'm looking elsewhere, I mean, Crutchfield's another one that I really like. It's tough. Let me go through kind of some of these other options I had real quick. But I mean, I will say this just to mention, with Gabari Johnson transferring, you now look at Aiden Glover and you say, all right, is this who the staff believes is going to be next up, or is he just a guy that's going to come in and compete with transfers and some other faces? So that's one at least looking out for out of Tennessee. I also think, I mean, Austin Dendy, another Arkansas product, another guy that they ripped out of that state. I could really, you've seen a lot, you mentioned earlier, a lot of Mizzou has a tradition of kind of a lot of under-heralded, kind of lower-rated running backs that ended up starring. He's not as highly touted as Quan Lacy, so maybe he's that guy. But I'll choose Glover to stray away from Lacy and Crutchfield, just to see kind of how he ends up developing. It's obviously going to be a long-term project, but it's got a good frame. It's 6'3", needs to put on some pounds. It wasn't the most highly recruited guy, but that's perfectly fine. Mizzou's made do with that before. I mean, i.e. Brady Cook. So again, I think Aiden Glover will be an interesting one to watch as he develops. Again, if Kirby Moore stays around, I am interested to see how he develops under Moore, because Moore, I think, is, I would venture to say, one of the better kind of just, I don't know if quarterback whisperer is the appropriate term, but with developing guys and kind of developing a scheme that's really in their favor, I think he's one of the best in the country right now. And so I think it'll be interesting to watch kind of how he works with Glover or pulls another transfer, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, yeah, as Josh pointed out, the transfer portal every year makes it so the recruitment of high school quarterbacks, I feel like, is potentially what has changed in terms of high school recruiting itself, the position that's changed the most is recruiting quarterbacks. Because now every single year you're seeing a program like, I mean, Oregon. How are you committing to Oregon as a high school quarterback when they're pulling in a transfer every year? So
Mhm.
it's a little interesting. I think I'm interested to see kind of how high school quarterbacks in the future handle the transfer portal and the likelihood that, yeah, the coach can tell you that you're going to be starting when you're a sophomore, but he could also pull in a redshirt senior from another Power Five. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Aiden Glover, my pick though. We'll see how he comes along.
Yeah. I mean, Kentucky hasn't had a quarterback that they recruited out of high school start for them in like 10 years or something like that. And I saw that stat the other day. I was like, that can't be right. But I mean, you go back, Will Levis, if you go, Devin Leary, you go further back beyond that. I think the last guy that they had start for quarterback that was actually recruited out of high school was Lynn Bowden, who was a damn wide receiver and was forced into a wildcat quarterback situation. So, I mean, it's quarterbacks are always the ones that are most likely to transfer just because there's only one that can ever play. Well, yes, two
For the
could get
most
on
part.
there if you're good enough, but like never in like actual action that's going to matter unless something catastrophic happens. So quarterbacks have always been the flight risk, but yeah, you see a couple. USC's quarterback Malachi Nelson, who for all intents and purposes was next man up in Los Angeles, he's gone. Going to South Carolina or something like that. It was just insane to me.
Yep.
So yeah, it is. It doesn't matter. Like if you just because you have them and there's a clear line of succession, that doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I mean, to Josh's point, like how do you recruit quarterbacks? I think it doesn't change a lot. I think you get a high school quarterback every single year with even a more heightened understanding that this dude's probably going to leave, and then you find a transfer quarterback every single year. 4-star, 5-star, highly regarded 3-star. Like I think you just need to get one of both every single year because you don't know when one of them is going to be getting out. And it's nice to just have them in your pocket with a year of the book under their belt, ready to step in case something crazy happens. And as far as Brady Cook goes, like if he does things well, he will be gone at the end of next year. Like, so
Yep.
here's your opportunity, Sam Horn. Here's your opportunity, Jake Garcia. But here's your opportunity, Aiden Glover. Absolutely.
Mhm.
That would be my answer too. I can't wait to see what this kid does. I know he was listed as a dual threat quarterback, which, what does that even mean in high school? Like you're kind of athletic and all of a sudden you are a dual threat. But yeah, with Sam kind of focusing more on baseball or seemingly more focused on baseball, he does seem to have the leg up in the competition, but he's also been here longer. Jake Garcia, can't transfer again without a penalty, so he's probably not going anywhere. And then Aiden Glover, like I don't know which one is going to step up and take the reins. Obviously, you'd like the younger guy to do it, so you don't have to start over again. But to this staff's credit, they're also very fair in their analysis of competition. They're going to let the best guy play, regardless of pedigree coming out of high school or age. So I don't know. I think I'm really curious spring ball 2025, what that looks like, especially with Brady's
Far
out.
in the
So,
future.
yeah, that's a far, far away. Other than that, though, and this is not like, oh, I want to see this more than anything else, but I am curious with Austin Dindy and Jude James because they were athletes listed as athletes coming out of high school. They both played tight end and safety, and I think a little bit of linebacker. And even Eli Drinkwitz said today, like, we're going to figure out where we're going to put them once we get into spring and like figure out where our needs are. This is, I don't know where they're going to go. I watched their tape. Austin Dindy in particular is like 6'2", 200. Like, obviously you're not that size for the rest of your college career, but that's not tight end material. That's barely H-back material. That's let alone SEC running back. I think Jude James at 6'4", I think is what he is, 6'4", 210. Obviously he needs to eat a couple biscuits once he gets on campus, but I think, he could play either one. I'm just really curious what they end up doing because how they get slotted, Parker, is how we figure out what this team needs the most in the spring. And so that's always fascinating to me.
Yeah, and there's a handful you also point out. I'm going to mention later on, but Jackson Hancock, another guy. You got a couple of athletes in this class that are kind of just they got a couple different spots they can play at, and you're just kind of going to see. And maybe this is a trend that Mizzou is going to start kind of recruiting a lot of these athletes and just kind of seeing where they fit into the roster essentially when they get on campus. It's certainly a strategy. I don't think there's too many negatives to it, but who knows what the pros would be. I think it's kind of an interesting approach, but yeah, I do like that. I think having a lot of guys. I also think you saw Travis Hunter did this year, and a lot of players, a lot of high school players are like, "Hey, I want to play two ways and try to do what he did." And so maybe that's going to start becoming more of a trend as well. But yeah, it'd be interesting, and it can't hurt. Can't hurt to have versatility. I think that's a term that every coach loves and every single player in the country. So yeah, we'll see how it ends up, but I am interested to see kind of where they end up slotting him, and also just the I can imagine, and I don't think on this staff, but per se, but I can imagine the debates and the back and forth that happen on coaching staffs across the nation when you've got guys that can play both ways or multiple spots, and the different position coaches are jockeying, saying, "No, we should play here, like X, Y, and Z reason. He'll be better. Trust me, we'll win more games because of it." And I find that to be interesting. I doubt Blake Baker and Kirby Moore are throwing hands over any guy kind of playing on either side of the ball, but
Yeah.
I do think they have their leans, and they're going to push for it a bit. So we'll see how some of that plays out.
Yeah. A lot of this has to, is determined on who on defense comes back, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of guys who could just leave, and it was a great year. A lot of guys got recognized. Like, you could see an exodus of starters, and so then it's like, well, okay, we got to backfill and then start prepping guys to take over, so that you could probably see those guys get kind of pushed a little bit by Eli to go to the defensive side. But there's also been rumors of the people with influence trying to keep them around for another year. So it's like, if they come back, then what? Then where do you put these guys? Where do you slot them? So yeah, I'm with you. It says a lot about the staff's thinking and how they analyze the roster and how they analyze their needs, where they put guys like that, the ones who can go either way. Last year we had Jordan Harris come up from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, our new pipeline, and he was a defensive end and a tight end. And looking at it, we're like, oh man, well, we really don't have another answer at a defensive end. It makes a lot of sense to put him there. And then they put him at tight end. And you're like, what? Okay. Even though you have a gaping hole and really not a lot of experience. And of course, it was because Darius Robinson filled the hole and did it very well. So, sometimes you can't tell in the moment, but looking back, you can see, oh, okay, they were definitely confident in what they had. That's why he's there. They needed someone at tight end. And of course, we didn't know what Brett Norfleet would be, but he ended up being pretty good. So yeah, it's interesting. I always like that stuff, and it sounds like you do too. So that's fun. So going from the biggest, from the guy you can't wait to see on offense, of course, we got to be fair and do the other side as well. What guy can you not wait to see play on defense?
I'll go ahead and make the bold claim that I think Cameron Keys is the next great Missouri defensive back, and
Okay.
I think he could be fairly quickly. I don't think he's going to start year one with the addition of Toriano Pride, but I think he's going to be a quality rotational piece of that secondary. And I think by the time he's a sophomore, he's going to be a starter and really have separated himself. And he needs to bulk up a bit for sure, but he's simply put, great in coverage. He is skilled in coverage. He can match up with the best of them. He's got the athleticism to hang with the fastest, strongest receivers. It's natural. It's very instinctive. So I think there's incredible upside with him. He's a guy that I think will be like Chris Abrams trained, pushing for the NFL draft by the time he's done as a Tiger. And I'm really excited to see what he does in year one. Again, Pride and Norwood have those cornerback spots locked down for all intents and purposes, you would imagine, but you need depth there. I think Keys is going to be a guy that's going to be able to do it and step in. So he was a huge recruiting win. Again, another one of those other guys out of Florida that we talked about. Mizzou reaching down there and pulling out one of the bigger names from the state as a 4-star guy, 4/3-star. But yeah, I think he will be a lot of fun to watch. Mizzou fans will be pretty big fans of what he's able to do. And not to set that high bar of, oh, he's going to be Chris Abrams drained, but he's going to have that level of production by the time he's an upperclassman. I'm going to go ahead. I'll make that bold claim right there and die on that hill.
I love it. I like this film. I liked it a lot. He and Javen Richardson or Jaron Richardson, they really like to hit. That's always fun. I like to see a corner who likes to hit dudes. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Not really cheat. It's our game. So we make the rules. I'm going to give you two. and it's two that are a tandem, and that's why I'm giving that as my answer, because I want to see Nicholas Rodriguez and Brian Huff man the two linebacking positions. I think that's going to be so cool. If you're unaware of who they are, they're both Missouri's two blue chip linebacking recruits from this class. Brian Huff comes to Mizzou from Arkansas because, again, Eli Drinkwitz loves to recruit from the Southern rival. He's from Jonesboro, Valley View High School. He's 6'3", 224 currently. He plays inside linebacker. Then you have Nicholas Rodriguez, who's more of an outside guy from that newly minted St. Thomas Aquinas pipeline in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I can't wait to see those guys play. And when I saw both of them were on, were got their signatures in, they were committed to Mizzou. I was like, okay, this is great. And then we got Chuck Hicks, who's coming back for another year. Unclear on Tyron Hopper, but even if he does go, Tristan Newsom's right there. So you have anecdotally, again, I talk about it, clear line of succession, where next year Hicks and Newsom play the linebacking spots while Huff and Rodriguez kind of get acclimated to the college game, figure it out, maybe start on special teams, maybe come in as a rotational piece, and then Hicks and Newsom kind of move on, and boom, there are your blue chippers ready to take over the linebacking spots. Be awesome. Or as JD calls them, Nick Rod. So there you go. We're going to call him Nick Rod. We'll call him the Bash Brothers. I don't know if that's, if that's too early for that. Probably is, but I am excited for the narrative, the anecdotal part of two young blue chippers recruiting the same class, committing in the same class, taking over at the same time, and being awesome for 3 years. I know that's probably not how it's going to happen, but come on, Parker. It's too tantalizing to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I do think, and then watching, I remember I think I wrote up the piece on Nick Rodriguez. Watching his film, it's hard not to like kind of what he does. Just, I mean, so high energy and so physical. I mean, he may not have the exact, SEC linebacker frame you want right now, but when he does, I think he's going to be a freak. So, and I think, I mean, Hufflaw in the same boat, although he is more already kind of built like that. He's kind of a little bit further ahead physically, I would say, but I think it would be fun to watch those two kind of going head to head and carrying on. I think an underrated, I would argue. D-line Zoo gets so much credit, but the linebackers at Missouri, I think over these past 10 plus years, I mean farther than that, really have been. I mean, one of the better consistent position groups in this program for the most part. I would say outside of some rocky late 2010 years where the defense suffered a bit, but I think if you just put on the list of names, I think those two certainly have the potential to be next up in that regard. And I think it's a byproduct of a lot of high school kids seeing, the Nick Boltons and the Hoppers and saying, man, I want to go do that in Missouri. And Blake Baker, I think his defensive style is also very attractive for linebackers. Just, how aggressively he blitzes and plays, and also how freely he lets them play. I think you saw Hopper obviously have so much success with it, but I think Newsom really has shown flashes and will take off within Baker's defense, where they allow that weak side guy compared to the middle linebacker is generally kind of your more stalwart guy, your typical guy linebacker. But I think it's a very attractive position group right now for recruiting for Mizzou. And we'll see. I think it would be the narrative you pointed out. I think would be really interesting to follow. You got to love kind of I feel like it's something that isn't talked about long in college football, but guys that come in together in the same recruiting class, like they have a bond. They are, they're probably, a lot of them are roommates together. They're all getting used to the program at the same time. So there is a bond that's formed there too. So that would be really cool to see them play together.
Yeah. As far as linebackers that Missouri has sent to the NFL, you had Sean Weatherspoon in 2010. Now I'm going back the past 24 years. So you had Sean Weatherspoon in 2010. He went to the Falcons in the first round, 19th pick. You had Andrew Gashkar, one of my favorites out of Overland Park, Kansas. He was a 7th round pick to the Chargers in 2011. He actually stuck around for a decent amount of time. Xavier Gooden, 3rd round pick to the Tennessee Titans in the 2013 NFL draft. Kentrell Brothers, the dude who just could not stop tackling fools in 2015. He was recruited. He was drafted in 2016. He was a 5th rounder to the Minnesota Vikings. And then, of course, our most recent, we all know this one, Nick Bolton, 2nd round, 58th pick of the 2021 NFL draft to the Kansas City Chiefs. So it has not, you haven't seen linebackers get sent a ton, but there have been some standouts, some All-Americans, some super weirdos, some productive guys. I mean, Blaze Aldridge is who I'm talking about. Like the guy who just
Yeah.
would either blow something up or explode himself, which is just a wild ride to watch him play. He was a lot of fun. Not the best, but he was a ton of fun.
I miss him.
But yeah, I think Eli Drinkwitz and Blake Baker have finally kind of smoothed out the linebacker position these past couple of years, and they certainly have some awesome reinforcements on the way. So yeah, I dig that. All right. So we've got the biggest win. We got the biggest steal. The guy you can't wait to see on offense, the guy you can't wait to see on defense, the one that everyone's always asking. And I think we have an answer. So you can answer this however you want, Parker. But which guy is most likely from this specific class? Which guy is most likely to start game 1 of the 2024 season?
I'm going to save the obvious pick for later because I really need to use him for a later superlative. But I'm frankly also not guaranteeing by any means, but I can see him starting. And you already pointed out, I think Elias Williams, with the turnover you're going to see up front on the defensive line, again, to be determined if Christian Williams comes back, and I believe it's also Jaden Jernigan, unless I'm mistaken, that can still come back as well at defensive tackle. You obviously have D-Rob leaving on the edge. There are guys there that obviously can just step up and move in, but I think Williams is going to have the same chance as the rest of them, even as Maneri, to step in and, play in a starting role. Maybe it's not game 1, of course, but at some point in the season, I think he could earn his way up to that. With his talent, he's already got really the size for the most part to do it. Yet another Florida kid that we've been talking about, but we'll see. I think he could take over one of those spots kind of as the season progresses. I think it's going to be a deal where so many people focused in on, Wineri's going to start. Wineri's going to be up there. And, a lot of these other, defensive linemen in this class are going to go under the radar. And I think Williams is going to take advantage of that and really kind of emerge as a consistent contributor. I think at the bare minimum, he's a rotational guy in year 1. Assuming that he plays to his high school standing, which, again, that sometimes is just a shot in the dark on if high school guys end up panning out. But based on what the film says and the outlook, I do think Elias Williams can have a fairly large impact year 1 and be starting by game 1 if he can really earn it through fall camp.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When you're looking at trying to answer these questions, you're looking at positions of need, opportunities, how your pedigree coming out of high school, what coaches have said about you, all that sort of stuff. So that makes sense. But along the lines for me, we'll talk about gaps being filled by transfers here in the next segment. And so this is obviously plays along that line, but left side of the offensive line, it's got two holes. And obviously Missouri got an answer to one of those holes through the transfer portal. But, even though we can assume what that's going to look like, we're not totally sure where he's going to line up. Left tackle, left guard, he can do both. Missouri also signed a guy who was an offensive tackle who actually played on the left side. His name is Javen Richardson. He's a junior college guy, and he's got 3 years left. He will be a redshirt sophomore as we head into the 2024 season. So you do the math: sophomore, junior, senior. It's a guy who's got 3 years left. They pulled him out of JUCO. He's 11th best junior college prospect. I can't talk today for the 2024 season. So you don't just get that guy and tell him, yeah, sorry, there's going to be a backup, man. I feel like they got him before they got the portal answer, but give him a shot, see what it looks like. I think a lot of offensive line coaches, it is more of an art than a science. And a lot of times they don't play the best guy at each position. They play the best 5 guys. And sometimes that means, if you want to use, Madden, NCAA math, maybe that means you take your 92 rated tackle and you make him an 86 rated guard because you only have, your only other options at tackler is like a 77 guy who doesn't fit anywhere else. Sometimes that's what you have to do. So I'm not saying that that's what we're going to see. Obviously, Coach Jones has got a lot of work to do. These guys have just signed, not even on campus yet, but you could talk yourself into a scenario where our coveted transfer portal edition slots in at guard once again, because that puts the only other guy who can play left tackle and Richardson out there and gives you a more solid starting 5 rather than your best 5 at each position. So I'm not saying that's the best answer. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's a scenario I could see where a newer guy sees the field immediately.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth pointing out with him, he comes from Hutchinson Community College, which very noted kind of pipeline of high quality community college player or JUCO players that ended up going on. I mean, you've got a couple big names. I mean, Cordell Patterson, Alvin Kamara, a couple guys that came out of there. So I mean, it's a place that produces some of the better JUCO guys in the country. So he's going to be ready. There's still going to be a learning curve for sure in the SEC, but he's going to be ready. He's also 6'7", 305.
Giant.
So I
Giant.
mean, he's not going to be hard for size. He's got it already. So I mean, yeah, he's got a couple years under his belt and plenty of time to develop. I can certainly agree with that one on a position that, yeah, I think the debate is early on. Did Green, and we'll probably touch on this later, but did Green transfer over to be a tackle, or was he just transferring to Mizzou because he wanted out of Oklahoma, wanted to go to Missouri, whatever? That's kind of a question that might come into play here as well. But ideally, yeah, I think the situation you presented, you've already got your answers at offensive line, and maybe Green goes to guard, and you throw Richardson out at tackle. But we'll see. Still plenty of movement to happen in the portal. That is for sure. We'll see if they land another one, but yeah, I could certainly see Richardson stepping in and being a big name up front.
Still got portal additions and subtractions. You still got spring practice, and then another portal addition subtraction period. Then you got fall. Like there's a long way to go, but it's something to keep your eye on. I agree. All right, let's get to the easiest one, and this could be your answer, any of the things that you've already mentioned or whatever you want. What was your favorite signing of this class, Parker?
Favorite signing? I just Jackson Hancock for me. I mean, I'm from Georgia. I'm close-ish to Sequoia High School, not super close to them, but I mean, this guy just makes plays. I mean, he's a football player. I mean, played some safety, ran the ball a bit, caught some passes, was on some special teams. I mean, dude just makes plays. I mean, I wrote about it, but I mean, athlete is the best possible description for what he is. And I think he's a freak. He's a missile out in the field. I'm really excited. Baker recruited him primarily. He was more successful for the most part in high school as a safety. So more than likely you would see him end up being a safety, but we'll see kind of how he develops. But yeah, I mean, just football player, a guy that I feel like is going to be really easy to cheer for when he's on campus. I likened him in some ways to Marcus Manuel in the sense that Manuel played both ways at Rockbridge High School, was a little bit undersized, a little bit under recruited, but then stepped in and found his niche at safety and ran with it. And maybe wasn't the greatest cover guy in the world, but a sure tackler, a leader, and you could rely on him out there on the field. I can see Hancock eventually kind of stepping into that kind of role. So we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. I think the most interesting thing to look about is his offer list. I mean, it's Mizzou, and there is not a single other Power 5 team on there. It is Coastal Carolina and App State. He only visited Coastal as his only other team. So you're getting a true under the radar guy, and I like it. And we'll see. We'll see where he ends up playing. I mean, who knows where he's going to end up being, but I would imagine safety, and I think he's at least down the line going to be making some plays.
Yeah, no, that's good. For me, I mean, it's Williams Winery is, creates a third 5-star on this roster. Like, that's awesome in its own. Kwan Lacy, you flipped him from Ole Miss, and no one thought that was going to happen. That's awesome. Jaron Sensabaugh, you deny Tennessee some guy that they want. That's awesome. The St. Thomas Aquinas guys, all three of them. I can't wait to see him play, especially Justin Bodford. That is a thick dude. He is short. He is stocky. He's part of the Three Amigos. Like, that's great. It's so hard for me to pick one because there's so many good stories about this particular recruiting class in particular, especially from where it started. We're like, are they even recruiting anymore to where we are now, where it's like, oh, just another top 25 class. But my favorite signing, the president. All rise for James Madison II, son of our esteemed president. He is a style of receiver that I like. The tall, lanky ones that just out jump you and make it look so easy. Obviously, Denario Alexander was a huge influence on my football watching life, and I want every receiver to be Denario Alexander. So, like, I see some of that in his game. His name is James Madison. He's got a badass nickname, the Prez. Like, And he's been a huge cheerleader for Mizzou. He's been an
Yeah.
active recruiter on Mizzou. He's social media fun. Like, at this point, there's nothing to not like about this guy, and he hasn't even played a snap yet. Like, I can't wait to see him play. I can't wait to see what he's going to look like. I can't wait to see how he fits into the scheme. And he also just seems like a good dude, and I love that, and he wants to be here. So that is my personal favorite outside of all the other narratives and anecdotes that you can get from this class. That's probably one of my favorites. So I don't know. It's fun to have a guy with a nickname, and I can't wait till the rest of the nation finds out. Because I don't know about you, Parker, but like I always feel like there's some recruit that you go, oh, when the rest of the world finds out about it, it's going to be a lot of fun. And for me, that's going to be James Madison.
Yeah, I think that was. It reminds me a little bit of Kool-Aid was a little bit more kind of highly
Yeah,
rated at high school, but once people
yeah,
really found out about him, they were like, "This guy's name's Kool-Aid." But no, I think the biggest thing is, yeah, I mean him on social media, but him just recruiting for Mizzou. I mean, you saw, I
yeah,
believe, his tweet a couple days ago where it was like the craziest. I forget who the flip was, but he was like, "The craziest thing is we're not even done yet. Like this is only the beginning," which just
yeah.
shows that like he's got some behind the scenes stuff going on. He's DMing guys. He's got it all working. So I mean, I think that was so cool, and also just sitting there as a coaching staff, and you're just like, man, this guy's just kind of doing our job for us. And like
Mhm.
let's be real, for the most part, I would imagine that fellow high school players are able to sell you on a program for the most part better than the coaching staff is, just because
Yeah,
they're guys that are your age going through the same exact process that you are. And he's already made his decision to commit there, and he's telling you about all the great things that are happening there. I mean, I feel like that's all you need to hear from a guy like James Madison. So I mean, yeah, that Mizzou fans, you have James Madison to thank for a I won't say a good part of this class, but a lot of how this class trended. I think James Madison and a couple others played a pretty big role.
yeah. We'll never know the effects of what he did
Yeah.
or how much work he put in, but you could see it, and that speaks a lot. It's always nice to have that guy around. So yeah, I'm with you. That's very cool. So 20 names on the list, 20 names in the fax machine, 20 names that we get to add to the roster today. It's a good day. But not only was it a good day from the high school recruiting, but it's been a good day from the transfer portal, a good week from the transfer portal. Last show, we talked to you about Marcus Carroll, Toriano Pride. Missouri's added some new ones. Obviously, the big one this week was Caden Green, the former four-star from Lee Summit North, the same school that Armand Mimbu's in. He went to Oklahoma last year, and now he's here. He's in Columbia. Uh, Everyone in Oklahoma thought he was happy. Everyone thought, hey, it's all Big 12 conference guard. Like, this is great. Like, what more could you ask? He ghosts them, goes in the portal, doesn't really respond to any interview requests from anybody on the Oklahoma side. And a couple days later, there he is, the Hayes Fawcett edit with the M on the helmet. He's coming home. So that's the biggest one, Parker. Obviously we had another one today. We'll get to that, but Caden Green's going to dominate the transfer portal talk really probably until spring, just because of who he was, where he was from, how entrenched he seemed to be, and now that he's here. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard that he was transferring to Missouri?
That those Lee Summit North guys, I would imagine, did a fair bit of work in bringing him over, which is, I mean, again, a great thing, and I think an overall sign of how great this culture and the program has become when you've got multiple guys now that are recruiting for you over the off season. But yeah, I mean, I think every single portal season, every coach is saying we can beef up in the trenches, we can beef up in the trenches. But Mizzou had holes to fill. Caden Green comes in, and as we've talked about, maybe he wants to go back to playing tackle, and that's perfectly fine. Left tackle is open. Maybe he wants to stick at left guard. Perfectly fine. Left guard is actually still open as well. So he's got a starting role locked up for him on a team that just ran the ball down the throats of the entire SEC for a season. Brady Cook was well protected for much of the year. He saw what that offensive line was able to do, being a Joe Ward, I believe a semi-finalist, maybe finalist, I forget exactly. But yeah, I mean, you've seen the offensive line. You're going to see Javon Foster go to the NFL this year. Membu's got NFL future as well. Xavier Delgado as well, going to more than likely land on an NFL roster. So they're putting guys in there. The zone blocking scheme, I obviously have to learn it. I believe they do a bit of that at Oklahoma regardless, but it's very I think beneficial in a lot of ways for some more athletic linemen, and I think Green kind of fits that mold for the most part. So I think he steps right in and immediately has plenty of success in the SEC. I don't know if he's. I mean, we'll see if he's an all-conference guy again. I don't think I'm willing to throw anything like that out there, but I think Green is going to be. I mean, it's hard to point out. Oh, we're very early in it. Biggest win of the transfer portal season, but I think as of this moment, I would argue that Green probably is for Mizzou, just from the guys so far. But it's a close call. But yeah, I think Green, big win. I think getting him over an Oregon program that was in that final two,
Yeah.
that is churning out offensive linemen to the NFL as well.
Mhm.
Consistently has some of the best. Can throw money at you like no other. That's a win. That's huge. That's as big, if not bigger, than well, Winery
Hmm.
aside, any of those high school recruiting wins, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird because the Lee Summit uh, high school football coaches they are very pro Oklahoma.
Mhm.
I think they're one of them at least is a former player. I know that. Um, so it's been tough to get the Kansas City side, especially the Lee Summit area, to get them to Mizzou. A lot of times they leak out to Oklahoma, and you're like, okay, well, all right, that's going to happen. So, yeah, you get a couple of wins, and then you have a good season, and then you say, hey, we got a hole. You fill it. It's going to be great. Um, this also goes to what I've talked about for multiple years now, which is it really doesn't matter if you miss out on a guy coming out of high school. You just catch him on the rebound when he hits the portal. Now, not all of them are going to do that, so that's a risk that you run. But if you just, same with Toriano Pride, if you just keep up a good relationship, keep up a dialogue, and you have an opening, and then you find a good pitch to finally bring him in, and he sees what it's like at the college program that he's at, and goes, "Oh, this is okay, but I could have it better here." Like get a guy who spends his free transfer, who's can't do it again without penalty for now. I see you, West Virginia Supreme Court, and build around those guys who've transferred once already. You got it with Pride, and now you got it with Green. The question I have for Caden Green, and this is, I don't think my piece has dropped yet, so I'll just go ahead and spoil it. When he was coming out of high school, the analysis on him was that he was a tremendous pass blocker, but like elite level run blocker. That was what he was really good at. Like you said, very athletic, great feet, good motor. Like, yeah, he was, he'll protect your blind side, but he's so good at just mauling dudes in the run blocking. So he gets to Oklahoma and he works with Oklahoma's offensive line coach. His name is Bill Bedenbaugh, one of the best in the industry. Not only just he turns out great college lines, but he gets them into the NFL. He has an eye for this. He is, again, one of the best in the country at doing this. He gave Caden Green 53 snaps at left tackle and went, you're a guard. You're a guard this year, and put him at left guard. And again, all Big 12 offensive guard. Nothing to snuff at. Clearly, Coach Bedenbaugh knows what he's talking about. But I do think, in his heart of hearts, it kind of seems like Caden Green wants to play tackle. And he certainly can. In pass protection this year, he didn't give up a single sack. And his pressure rate was extremely low. I'm forgetting what it is off the top of my head, but he did really well in pass protection from the inside. So he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the proven track record that he can play at the college level, at least in the Big 12. Like, was the conversation, hey, I'd like to play tackle, and the answer no from the Sooner side? I don't know what those conversations were. Were the conversations with Eli going, hey, you can play tackle for us? Yeah, whatever, it's fine. We don't know. I think Horse Armand Mimbu, Williams Winery, just who knows. But the point is that they were able to dislodge him from what seemed like a pretty good situation, capitalizing on some kind of sales point that clicked clearly. And he's here now. And he, again, cannot transfer without penalty. So you can build around him. He is a freshman who played in 11 games, I think is what it was last year. So, he was always probably going to be a 3 or 4 year player anyway. You weren't going to redshirt him, and he could easily enter the NFL early. So this is what you want. This is like you said, this could be the biggest win. Absolutely. Maybe in the country. When you consider the caliber of player, the position he plays, you do not just get all conference offensive linemen out of the portal. I know they did it with Cameron Johnson, and they do it again here at a position of need for a team that returns a quarterback, returns all of its receivers, returns possibly more on defense than what we anticipated. I think the signing of Green, the celebration around it is the signing itself, and also just the statement that Missouri is here to go into the playoff in 2024. Playoff or bust. They are spending, they are bringing in guys to make a run for the playoff, especially with a schedule where you're not siloed into East and West, and you have so much potential returning production and a really easy non-con, and you don't leave the state until October. Like this staff is pushing for a playoff berth in 2024. Caden Green is the canary in the coal mine for that, and I think it's exciting to get him back, and it's just exciting for the program in general that we are like, no, that is what we are gunning for.
I like to imagine. I've a couple times this week I've imagined Elijah Drinkwitz just doing the Money Manziel celebration, just because I mean I feel like that's the mood in within that program and on that coaching staff. I mean they can do, knock on wood, no wrong right now, essentially. So yeah, I think. I mean, the last thing I want to touch on with him, yeah, your point about guard versus tackle, kind of how I mean, I think it does. It's going to come down to a lot of personally, how does he feel? Is someone going to have the heart to heart with him and say, "Hey, you have an NFL future at guard. We don't know if you do at tackle." Again, early in his career, he can develop at tackle for sure. So you can't really rule that out by any means. But I'm interested to see, yeah, well, Brandon Jones, who another, I mean, we've talked about a couple rising assistant coaches. He's yet another one on this staff. Interested to see what Brandon Jones kind of does in looking at him, and kind of what a lot of it will come down to. And we're not going to, I would highly doubt that we're going to know this before the season starts, if during the season. But it comes down to, is Green really committing here to play tackle? Is he going to push for that no matter what? Or if people really sway him to guard, is he going to stay there? So we'll see. I mean, it's a win-win regardless. I mean, even if he's tackle and he's not as good as he was at guard, he's still going to be a pretty dang good tackle. So I'm not too concerned about kind of that potentially dramatic situation, but we'll see. But no, I mean, to your point, Green major win. I think it's just. I mean, it's. I put out the phrase the other day, but I mean, Elijah Drinkwitz is shopping right now, and he's just picking out. Oh, I need this position. Boom, let me get one of the top three guys. I mean, it's just. It's. I don't want to say easy because I mean they're putting a lot of work for it, but I mean they're just the success rate. It's 100% right now. They're hit.
Best running back in the portal, according to On3. Best offensive lineman in the portal, according to everybody. One of the best corners in the portal, according to multiple groups. Yeah, you're right. Just going to Whole Foods and dropping the check, baby. That's getting the high class stuff. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about the guy who came today. Yeah. There, amongst all of the fax machine shenanigans in high school recruiting, Missouri added a transfer edge rusher from Georgia. Like the program Georgia. His name is Darius Smith. He was an edge rusher. So, in Georgia's 3-4, he was an outside linebacker. For Mizzou, he'll probably be a defensive end, like a 4-3 defensive end. I don't know if you've watched his high school tape, Parker. Obviously, he didn't do much in college. He was a special teamer his freshman year, and then he was in for like 30 snaps this year. And got a tackle for loss, which, good for him, but like he just was not used. So he's looking to get some action somewhere else. And of course, Missouri's got a hole at defensive end. And there he is. There's Darius Smith. They bring him in. He's here. I don't know if you watched his high school tape, but highly regarded coming out of high school. Obviously, he ended up at Georgia for a reason. And this is another guy that we get to add to the mix as far as defensive end. Pairing it with our exciting middle guys, the 3-star guys who have a lot of potential, with the 5-star guy, Williams Nwaneri, and now you add a blue chipper from Georgia who's hungry for some playing time. How does it get any better than this, Parker?
Yeah, I was I didn't watch much of his high school stuff, but I did watch some of the few snaps, productive snaps that he had with Georgia. And I think, I mean, the biggest thing that jumps out is, I mean, he's 6'5", but his wingspan, I mean, he's stiff arming offensive tackles and just getting them off of him. It's insane. And then there was one play specifically I looked at where he didn't get the sack, but on Spencer Rattler, you saw him. I mean, Rattler had about three feet of space, and Smith jumps off his block and closes that in a split second. So, I mean, just the physical attributes are there. He's got the length to just be really, really problematic for offensive tackles to handle, just how he's more than likely going to be getting his hands on you first as opposed to the other way around, unless you're just really quick to the punch. But we'll see. I think he can add a little bit of something different. I think we've seen Darius Robinson and Johnny Walker to somewhat of the same extent. We're more power technique based. Johnny Walker a little bit more speed thrown in there, but I think Smith can come in and be kind of this long, rangy, quick burst guy off the edge that you bring in. Maybe he's a pass down specialist. I don't know if he's going to be an every down guy per se, but he's going to be at the bare minimum. Blake Baker is going to have a lot of fun with moving him around and kind of just getting aggressive with him. And I think the other part that you look at, I granted didn't play a ton, but he was a part of the program. There is something to be said about coming from a championship pedigree program. He did appear in both of those playoff games last year. He also knows how a championship program is ran. He knows what the training and the commitment that goes into that is. He knows a championship level coaching staff when he's seen it. Ideally, he brings some of that, and that rubs off on the rest of the Missouri program. Unless, best case scenario, the Missouri program is already doing a lot of the same things that these other national teams are, which from the outside looking in, they are for the most part. But again, there's a lot of internal stuff that also has to go down. So I do think some of his experience within the Georgia program will help as well. But I just think as a pure pass rusher, I think he could be really disruptive. I talked about D-line Zoo earlier. I think he can definitely be one of the next kind of notable names in that and kind of bolstering this pass rush. We'll see. I mean, year one, again, you look at the defensive end room. Johnny Walker got one of those spots obviously lined up. You've got Gaddy back, Firestone back. There's a couple of names kind of shuffling around in there that going to compete for rotational snaps. Smith will be up there, and I think he has just as good of a chance as any of them to take that other starting spot, frankly.
Yeah. It is weird. Eli, for all of D-line Zoo's, heyday, Eli Drinkwitz does really like kind of the more run-oriented, strong-side defensive ends, or at least, that's what they've deployed. That's what they've had to use. You don't really see a lot of speedster, sackmaster kind of guys. Not that they don't get sacks, but that's not the type that he tends to attract. So, like a pure edge rusher like that, we have not seen a ton of those. Or if we have, they've transferred out. But like Isaiah McGuire, that was a power dude, right? Like he played on the inside, he played on the outside, and like he did really well on the outside, but his skill was being like the second guy to the quarterback. Like, he's kind of moving around, he's kind of on his feet, and then boom, there's Isaiah taking him down. And same thing with like, Johnny Walker's got really good hands and he can work his way in. But yeah, Darius Robinson's more like, I'm just going to push my guy into you and then work my way off the block. You don't see a lot of guys kind of Shane Ray rip through, like Marcus Golden or even Michael Sam that can, finesse their way around, kind of bend the edge and get their guy. We have not seen that for a long time. So, it'll be something different. It'll be something interesting. The thing with Blake Baker is that you do not need to be providing pressure just from the line. You bring pressure from everywhere. So if you have a guy on the edge, you can provide that. All of a sudden, you don't need to blitz your corner or your safety or, your linebacker. You can just get it with 4. And Blake likes to create pressure. He does not have to do it with blitzing. Like when he was at Miami, he would just send the defensive line. Like, you guys got it. We can just drop back in a shell. So he'll do whatever he needs to do to get pressure. That does not always mean blitzing, but he can do it that way. So it'll be interesting to see how he works his way in. Like you said, with Gaddy back, with Walker back, obviously you kind of feel like those are your starters. Joe Moore, Austin Firestone, they've rotated in, but Ja'Kai Lane, I'd love to see that guy. He's out of Troy Buchanan. He was one of my favorites from the last class. I'd like to see him get in there. Serene Tunkara is still around, and then of course Williams, Winery, and everybody else. Like there's a lot of names in the defensive end side that you can have a situation where the best plays, and you can feel pretty confident that they made it through enough of a gauntlet that they've earned it, and that the staff truly believes in them. So when you looked at the team, and again, we still have a game to play. It feels like it feels like the season's over, but it's not. There's still another game to play. But when you look at this team heading into 2024, you need a running back, you need a couple of offensive linemen, you needed a defensive end, you might need a defensive tackle, you definitely need some linebackers, you probably need a corner. We'll figure out where that goes. And if you want to take another safety, knock yourself out. And bing, bang, boom. Like you said, to your point, Drinkwitz has knocked out most of those. Again, this just goes back to the fact that this team is gearing up for a playoff run in 2024. Tyler McCoy, I also thought Gaddy was out of eligibility. I asked. He's got another year left, which is great. I was so glad to be wrong on that one. But 2019 was his first year, and he can come back to play again. So that is awesome. Again, he's probably not going to be your bona fide starter, like get the most snaps, but he is experienced, and that is something that this team needed because they are making that push. So if you got all these guys that you're pulling out of the portal, you are making a statement. And then, of course, you add the extra recruiting on top of that, and whatever those blue chippers can contribute now. This team is built for a run, and it's going to be funny because without the East-West split now, it's going to be tougher to be in the SEC championship game. We're now in baseball territory, where SEC baseball is renowned for you're probably not going to win the conference, but you could win the World Series. It kind of feels like that's where the SEC is in football now, where you probably won't show up in the championship game. But if you can get in, boy, like you have a chance to make some noise, which is more than most Mizzou teams have been able to say. And it's just an exciting time that Mizzou is in a position to make that kind of run.
It's going to be so interesting to see. And I mean, it's going to be a horrible debate when it happens, but a lot of people are going to start saying, especially with what happened this year, man, is it almost more beneficial just to like drop 2 games in the regular season, not make that conference championship game and slide in as a 9 to 12 seed, as opposed to being a 7 or 8 to 6 and being in that championship game? Maybe you lose by 14, 20 points. And then it's like, are you in still? Maybe you have 2 or 3 losses. It'll be interesting to see how many teams kind of backdoor their way in without a conference title.
It is curious. I feel like a lot of times, especially in the Big 12, the conference championship game knocked out so many teams from the BCS championship. It was just like it was death's kiss, right? Like and that it got Mizzou twice. So that will be really curious. I will point this out though. The top 4 seeds get a bye, which is huge. Now, obviously, there's a gap of time, or I guess we're assuming there's a gap of time between conference championship and the first round of the playoff.
Surely. Who knows
I
how
would
the schedule's
think
going to
so,
work?
but I also don't know, and they love to stuff things into December. So maybe, what do I know? But I am assuming that there's going to be at least 1 week between conference championship and the first round of the playoff. That I might be proven wrong. I don't know, but let's just assume that. It would be really nice to, obviously win your conference championship and get that bye and give yourself 2 weeks to prepare for whatever comes out of the first round and, scout both, maybe scout the potential next opponent, but just give your guys that break, give your army of analysts that time to come up with the game plan. And, obviously the Alabamas, the Michigans, Ohio States, they're going to overwhelmingly get those buys. But if you can do it, if you can pull it off, that's nice. But still, at the end of the day, Missouri football Tigers in the college football playoff is not a phrase I ever thought I would ever utter as a Missouri fan. And it's more realistic now than it ever has been before. I just want you all to breathe that in and think about it for a second.
Don't take this for granted. I think that's the biggest thing I'm going to be telling Mizzou fans throughout this offseason. Do not take a program with this much positive momentum and this much just continuity for granted, because there are dozens upon dozens of other Power 5 programs that have been at this point before and are fighting so hard to get back, and they just can't seem to do it. Ask Nebraska fans, ask Miami fans. They're struggling, and they would kill to be in this position right now. So, yeah, soak it in. It is a peak of Missouri football right now. At least it is trending in that direction.
Yeah. To your question, JD, I have no idea. I know what green is. Obviously, we know what green is. I don't know what gold is. Do you know, Parker?
No, I mean, I'm thinking, no, because if he's going strictly off Caden Green, I don't know who has the name Gold, unless he's going off a gold team, but that wouldn't, I don't know. I'm thinking Minnesota. Like, I don't know. Golden Gophers.
I don't know. Oklahoma doesn't wear gold. No. Mizzou wears gold.
Yeah. I'm trying to think off the top of my head other teams that wear gold.
Does Lee Summit North wear gold?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll look at it real quick.
Trajan Greco. Is Greco like Latin for gold? I don't know.
Drake, what it surprised me, Drake would pull something like that. He loves his little play on words. No,
So
at least
Trajan
some
Greco
doesn't have
was
gold.
from Mill Creek.
At
I
least
know
some doesn't have gold.
he spurned Georgia Tech, which wears gold. I don't know.
Because I mean, you're assuming another transfer he's putting it alongside Green, but who knows? Well, we'll see. I'm sure Mizzou Twitter will unearth it somehow within the next week or so. There's someone out there doing it.
Our little mysterious little coach, always dropping stuff. Speaking of mysterious, can we talk Ryan Wingo for a second?
I suppose we can.
It's been a good show. Let's end it on a stinker. No, here's what I'm going to say, and in case you weren't terminally online, like a good chunk of our fan base is, late last night, I think it was Gabe DeArmond, I'm not sure, but somebody, I think it was Gabe, said that Missouri was making another pass at Ryan Wingo, the 5-star receiver from SLU, who spurred Mizzou at his commitment ceremony when everyone thought he was going to go there, and it actually ended up at Texas. Which, at the time I thought it was fine. I didn't care all that much. But allegedly Missouri made another offer, and whenever these things happen, you got to look at the source, right? And the Wingos, like the Wingo family, is very well connected to the recruiting sphere, right? They've had 2 guys already go through this process, a third with Ryan. They know what they're doing. They know certain recruiting reporters really, really well. And to maintain that relationship, they'll drop some things here, he'll report it, all that stuff. So for me, whenever you hear that sort of thing, especially from the Wingo family, to me, I always interpret it as cost of the bag went up. That's all they're doing. They just increase the brick price. That's what they want to do. And of course, you wake up in the morning and there's people talking about it. So my initial thought was no, thank you. I don't see any reason why Missouri needs to bring Ryan Wingo on. BK and I went over this on the show when we did the live commitment that he spurned us on. I said at the time, even before he said no, it didn't make a lot of sense to bring him in. It makes sense because you always take a 5-star, right? From that standpoint, but he was a very raw prospect. He's a 5-star athlete. He's not a 5-star receiver. He has a lot to hone and refine as a receiver, much like DGB, who was just an athletic freak who could catch the ball. Like, you had to make him something. He could be really good, but you had to make him something. And that didn't make a lot of sense for a Missouri team that had proven prospects at the receiving core to add yet another one in there. And he's going to have to work on it. And then he's also got constantly has his eye going elsewhere. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. But the feedback on the internet, which again is the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, fell into one of 2 categories. Number one, you're being emotional, which, okay, cool. Silo number 2 was you always take a 5-star, which is fine. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just to me, it didn't make any sense. And I've already explained why. And really, especially in this day and age, why the hell would you invest in a freshman like that who is on the record? Like, I'm not saying he's the only one, but he is on the record and makes it very public that he is going to be going for the best financial situation for his family. Why would you get that out of high school when he's got 1 free transfer to go, when you could literally just wait 1 year for him to transfer away from whatever school he goes to? I don't care which one it is. I guess it's Texas now, but wherever he goes, he's going to keep putting out feelers with his well-connected family to say, oh, I'm interested. Oh, I'm looking around. Oh, talk to me. Like, why not just wait for him to come back? And then he's got the extra restriction placed on him. It didn't make any sense to me at the time last night when I read it. It didn't make any sense to me this morning when I got all the social media feedback about how I was an emotional idiot. And I'm still standing by it. Like, he should go to Texas. And if you really, really want Ryan Wingo, just wait for him to transfer. So, Parker, what were your thoughts on the whole Wingo mini drama from today?
Oh, I mean, it's someone that is playing this new recruiting game in football to his and his family's biggest benefit, and it is. I'm not going to go too kind of hard on him because, again, it's an 18-year-old kid. He's doing what's best for him and his family. I'm never going to fault that at all. But do you want a prospect that is treating these universities like that, and frankly, from what you can tell, is not going to have the utmost pride and respect for the uniform that he's going to put on? Again, that's me putting words in his mouth per se, but just what it seems like. When again, to your point, he's more than likely going to be putting out feelers while he's at Texas potentially to teams. And do you want to just be, because in his head he's thinking right now more than likely Mizzou's still in my back pocket. Like I can transfer there at any point. They're going to throw me a bag. Are those the kind of individuals you want in a program where you're building this culture that is so team oriented and so we are trying to build this program up in all the right ways? I just don't know if it's even that's a cultural fit for me. Really, is would be the issue with Wingo there. So we'll see. I don't. This is the new world of college football. I don't have any problem with it per se. But if I am a coach and if I'm a fan of this program, I'm not looking at Wingo and saying, "Man, that guy was going to come in here and love the black and gold. He was going to, give his 100% all the time and just, really be fully invested." No, because if he came to Mizzou, he also would probably have Texas and a host of others in his back pocket that he would more than likely be reaching out to. To oversimplify it, he's going to be more than likely cheating on whatever program he goes to. Maybe not as a freshman by any means, but later down the line, who knows? So
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not too overly concerned with it. I again probably will go to Texas and more than likely be very successful. He's got all the athletic, ability. Texas has the quarterbacks to throw in the ball. They got the talent to put him around him. So wish him all the best for sure. But I'm not. You're not struggling too much. You like the wide receivers you've got coming in regardless already. So it's not. You can't have it all. I think that's one thing I want to that Missouri fans can't get fallen into. You're getting all these victories, but you can't win every single one. That's never going to happen. It doesn't happen for anybody. Bama doesn't win them all.
That's
Just
right.
how it is.
I think that's an excellent point. And you don't want to win all the battles because then you get funds tied down.
Yeah.
And when in this college football iteration that we have, this world that we live in, you do have to look at a cost effectiveness, right? What is the value of my investment into this property? What am I going to get out of it in what time frame? And that's why it didn't make sense to me to do this with Ryan Wingo, because he's going to demand top dollar. He is a 5-star prospect from St. Louis, and he has every team in the country wanting him on their team. Every single coach is like, "Yep, I'll take him." Even Eli Drinkwitz. And to be fair, if he ended up at Mizzou, that'd be great. Like LOL Texas, I was all on board that. Okay. But what are you getting out of that investment? And it goes back to my point with, we have every receiver coming back. I know Theo's kind of up in the air, Mookie's kind of up in the air, but everyone's kind of leaning like, yeah, we're coming back. So you're going to spend Luther money for Marquise production? Maybe not even that. Daniel Blood production? And again, no shot against those guys. They are a freshman in a crowded receiving room. Ryan Wingo will be a freshman in an even more crowded receiving room, and he is raw. He is a piece of clay that needs to be molded. Like, when you are going for a playoff run, are you going to waste receiver snaps on a guy who needs experience, on a guy who needs to get better, who has all of the tools to do it, but needs the reps to get better? Are you going to do that on a playoff team? No, I don't think you are. And certainly not at that price. I wouldn't anyway, especially when I could get, 2 offensive linemen, a really good edge rusher, maybe 2 interior defensive linemen for that. And I know that they could play. It was not worth the investment. What you would get, you would have buyer's remorse immediately, and you would tie down those funds to a guy who's going to constantly be asking for the price of the brick to go up, wherever that is, which again, that's fine. That's how it is now. I don't appreciate it, but like, that's fine. I care less about, like, your point to culture is absolutely right. I care less about that, because you do want those kind of guys that can demand that kind of dollar, but you also need to tie them down. And the best way to tie a Wingo down is to get him to transfer once and then have that restriction placed on him. So that's where I stood. I mean, at this point, well, I guess he's already signed, so you can't can't change his mind. But I mean, let's fast forward a year from now. If you hear he's in the transfer portal, are you just like, take him, no questions asked?
Personally, no. Is that the reality? Not at all. They're going to take him, or they're going to at least.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
going to go after him. I mean, you'd be hard pressed not to. I'm a bigger person on culture, and you're going to win with the right people, not necessarily just always the most talented people. But that's just kind of personal preference. So we'll see. But yeah, they will go after him. And I would be stunned to see that Mizzou would not be his top option if he does transfer. I mean, who knows what could change between then and now? But I mean, that would more than likely be it.
You need culture guys. You also need guys who can be prima donnas because they're that good and they can get away with it. You can't have a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Gus Malzahn. Like, you cannot recruit just those guys. Ask Jimbo Fisher. You cannot just recruit those guys. It does not work out. But you can have one or two, and you can have the rest of the team kind of acclimate the culture, absorb them in, but you cannot have too many. So I don't know. At this point, if he wants to come next year, that's fine. But he's going to be a Texas Longhorn, and I don't even know if he's going to see the field there. So we'll see. Maybe he'll surprise us all. But we've got an hour and 20 minutes. My goodness.
Yeah.
And hey, only one real tech issue. So congratulations, Parker. We did.
Yeah, that worked. Everything was smooth the rest of the way. I was actually quite surprised. I was scared early.
Yeah, that's okay. Working out the jitters. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Any last words of wisdom to impart on our listeners?
Oh man. I mean, I will reiterate the point of Missouri fans, again, soak this in. This is an incredible time to be a Tiger alumni, student, player, coach, fan, etc. Look forward to the Cotton Bowl. It is still in 9 days. If you all have forgotten about it with all this signing day and transfer portal stuff, they still have a massive bowl game to play in, and a lot more Ohio State players. After a couple initial ones dropping out, a decent amount of the big names are still hanging around. As far as I know, MHJ is not, unless I missed it. MHJ has not said if he's going to be playing yet or not. He's still kind of on the fence if he's coming back as a whole. So we'll see. But a lot to look forward to with that one too. And going forward into spring camp, I think your point, and the more I haven't thought about this too extensively yet, but your point about them gunning for a 2024 playoff, it's becoming more and more real in my head. And it makes me, the big thing I want to find out about this program next year is how do you do as the hunt did, not the hunter? Because you didn't have any pressure. You had internal pressure on you from the fan base, yes, but not from the teams you were playing. Now the teams you are playing know how good you are, know how talented you are, and they know you're competing for national title based on what you've done over this offseason. You've got to be able to put up with when the big schools aren't just saying, oh, it's Mizzou. They're saying, oh, this is Mizzou. We're taking them very, very seriously.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting. And yeah, we'll see the first iteration of that when they go up against Ohio State on December 29th. Well, that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions, and of course, you all listening live. Leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Gillam_Parker. And of course, you can follow the Rockham flagship at Rockham Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockham Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.